The rain-slicked streets of New York City gleamed under the neon glow. But for Lena Carter, the night felt like a blade pressed against her heart. She stood outside Lucille Etoile, the Michelin-starred restaurant that had been her dream to dine at since she was a teenager sketching recipes in her mother's cramped Harlem apartment. Tonight, that dream was shattered not by chance, but by the cold, deliberate cruelty of a hostess who sneered, "We don't serve your kind here." Lena's breath caught, her fingers tightening around the hand of her partner, Jamie, whose sharp jawline and tousled hair caught the light as they stood defiantly in the restaurant's golden glow. The words stung, not just for their venom, but because Lena knew exactly what "your kind" meant. It wasn't just her black skin or her tailored suit that challenged the room's unspoken rules. It was the love she shared with Jamie, a non-binary artist whose quiet strength had been her anchor through years of struggle. "Excuse me." Lena's voice was steady, though her chest burned. She'd faced rejection before, casting directors who called her too urban, chefs who dismissed her culinary innovations as gimmicks. But this was different. This was personal. The hostess, a woman with a practiced smile and eyes like ice, didn't flinch. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're fully booked. Perhaps try somewhere more fitting." Her gaze flicked to Jamie, lingering on their leather jacket and the rainbow pin glinting on the lapel. The implication was clear. Jamie stepped forward, their voice low but fierce. "You're not booked. We made a reservation weeks ago. Lena Carter. Table for 2. 8 p.m. The hostess's smile tightened, but she tapped her tablet with exaggerated care. "I'm afraid there's no record of that. You'll have to leave." A security guard loomed nearby, his presence a silent threat. Lena felt the weight of every eye in the restaurant's wealthy patrons in designer suits, their whispers like knives. She wanted to scream, to demand justice, but she knew the game. This wasn't about a reservation. It was about who they were, who they loved, and the audacity to exist unapologetically in a space that didn't want them. "Let's go, Jamie," Lena said, her voice barely above a whisper. She turned, her heels clicking against the pavement, Jamie's hand warm in hers. But as they walked away, Lena made a vow under her breath, "I'll be back. And when I am, you'll beg me to stay." Lena's story wasn't one of overnight success or fairy tale luck. Born to a single mother in Harlem, she'd grown up with the scent of spices and the rhythm of jazz filling their tiny kitchen. Her mother, a line cook with dreams bigger than her paycheck, taught Lena to cook with love, to turn simple ingredients into stories on a plate. By 16, Lena was sneaking into culinary classes at the community center, her notebooks filled with recipes that blended her African heritage with bold, modern twists. But the world wasn't kind to a queer black woman with ambition. Culinary school was a gauntlet of microaggressions, professors who overlooked her, classmates who mocked her exotic flavors. Yet Lena persisted, graduating top of her class and landing a job at a small Brooklyn bistro. There, she met Jamie, a painter whose murals adorned the city's walls, their art a rebellion against conformity. Their love was instant. Electrica shared fire that burned brighter with every challenge they faced. Now, at 30, Lena was a rising star in the culinary world, her pop-up dinners drawing crowds and critics alike. But Lucille Etoile was the pinnacle, a symbol of everything she'd fought for. To be turned away, not for her talent, but for her identity. was a wound that cut deep. Back at their loft in Bushwick, Lena paced, her anger a live wire. Jamie sat cross-legged on the couch, sketching her in quick, furious strokes. "They don't deserve you," Jamie said, their voice soft but firm. "But you're going to make them regret this." Lena stopped, her eyes meeting Jamie's. "I'm not just going to make them regret it. I'm going to own places like that. I'm going to build something so big they'll choke on their own words." Jamie grinned, setting their sketchbook aside. "That's my girl. So, what's the plan?" The plan was audacious, reckless even. Lena had been saving for years, scraping together every penny from her pop-ups and catering gigs. She'd been eyeing a small storefront in Manhattan, a risky leap for a chef without a restaurant. But now, fueled by fury and vision, she decided to go all in. She'd create a restaurant that wasn't just a dining experience, but a monumental celebration of diversity, love, and resilience. The next morning, Lena met with her best friend, Marcus, a financial whiz who'd escaped the same Harlem streets she had. Over coffee in a bustling diner, she laid out her vision, a restaurant called Eclipse, where every dish told a story of heritage and defiance, where the staff reflected the city's kaleidoscope of identities, and where love, in all its forms, was celebrated. Marcus leaned back, his brow furrowed. "Lena, this is big. You're talking about a multi-million-dollar venture. The space alone will cost a fortune. And you're up against giants like Lucille. You sure you're ready?" "I'm not ready," Lena admitted, her voice fierce. "But I'm done waiting for permission. I'm doing this for me. For Jamie. For every kid like us who's been told they don't belong." Marcus nodded, a slow smile spreading. "All right. Let's make it happen. I know some investors who'd love your fire. But you've got to bring your A game." For the next 6 months, Lena poured her soul into Eclipse. She worked 16-hour days, refining recipes that fused West African jollof rice with Southern soul food, crafting cocktails that sang with Caribbean rum and local herbs. Jamie designed the restaurant's aesthetic bold murals of queer icons, tables carved with poetry, a space that felt like a hug and a revolution all at once. But the road was brutal. Investors balked at her risky concept. Banks denied loans, and permits got tangled in red tape. Every rejection felt like Lucille all over again, a reminder of the world's resistance to her existence. Yet Lena kept going, fueled by Jamie's unwavering belief and her own unyielding grit. By the time Eclipse opened its doors, it was more than a restaurant, it was a beacon. The grand opening drew a line around the block, with queer couples, families of color, and foodies from across the city eager to taste Lena's vision. Critics raved, calling her dishes a love letter to the marginalized. And within months, Eclipse was booked solid, its waiting list stretching weeks. But Lena wasn't done. She hadn't forgotten Lucille Etoile. Not yet. Eclipse became a phenomenon, not just in New York, but across the culinary world. Lena's story, her rejection at Lucille Etoile, her bold vision for a restaurant that embraced every identity, spread like wildfire. Food blogs called her the chef who rewrote the rules, and social media buzzed with photos of her vibrant dishes and Jamie's stunning murals. Yet, even as reservations poured in and awards piled up, Lena felt the sting of that rainy night outside Lucille. It wasn't enough to succeed. She wanted to transform the industry that had tried to erase her. Lena's days were a whirlwind of creativity and hustle. She'd wake at dawn to source ingredients from local BIPOC farmers, spend afternoons perfecting new dishes, and evenings charming guests with her warmth and wit. Jamie was her rock, handling Eclipse's branding while still finding time to paint late into the night. Their love grew stronger amidst the chaos, a quiet rebellion against a world that often felt stacked against them. But success brought new challenges. Competitors whispered that Eclipse was a gimmick, a diversity checkbox rather than a serious contender. Anonymous online trolls targeted Lena, their comments laced with racism and homophobia. One night, after reading a particularly vicious post, Lena slammed her laptop shut, tears burning her eyes. "They'll never stop, will they?" she said, her voice trembling. Jamie knelt beside her, their hands gentle on her shoulders. "They're scared," Jamie said. "You're changing the game, and they can't handle it. But you're stronger than their hate." Lena nodded, wiping her tears. "I want to do more than change the game. I want to own it." That ambition led her to a risky but exhilarating idea, franchising Eclipse. She envisioned a chain of restaurants, each one a sanctuary for those who'd been marginalized, each one a testament to the power of love and resilience. Marcus warned her it was a gamble. Scaling up meant more debt, more scrutiny, but Lena was undeterred. She partnered with a collective of queer and BIPOC entrepreneurs, pooling resources to open Eclipse locations in Chicago, Miami, and Los Angeles. The expansion was a triumph. Each new Eclipse drew crowds, its menus tailored to local cultures while staying true to Lena's vision. By her 32nd birthday, Lena was no longer just a chef. She was a brand, a movement, a force. Forbes named her one of the 30 under 30 in food and drink, and her net worth climbed into the millions. Yet, she still felt the shadow of Lucille Etoile, its rejection a scar that hadn't fully healed. One evening, as Lena and Jamie celebrated the opening of their 5th Eclipse in San Francisco, a stranger approached them at the bar. She was an older woman, elegant in a silk blazer, with a sharp gaze that seemed to see through Lena's polished exterior. "You're Lena Carter," the woman said, her voice warm but commanding. "I'm Vivian Grant, a venture capitalist. I've been watching your work, and I think you're sitting on a gold mine." Lena raised an eyebrow, intrigued but cautious. "Thank you, but Eclipse is doing just fine." Vivian smiled. "I'm not talking about fine. I'm talking about global. I want to invest in you, not just your restaurants, but your vision. Let's take Eclipse to Paris, Tokyo, London. Let's make it bigger than Lucille Etoile ever dreamed." Lena's heart raced. Going global was a dream she'd barely dared to voice. But Vivian's confidence was infectious. Over the next few weeks, they met repeatedly, hammering out a deal that would inject hundreds of millions into Eclipse. Jamie was skeptical, worried about losing the intimacy of their brand. But Lena saw it as a chance to rewrite the rules on a world stage. The deal was a turning point. With Vivian's backing, Eclipse exploded onto the international scene, opening flagship locations in major cities. Lena's recipes became a global sensation, her story a beacon for queer youth and people of color everywhere. By 35, she was a billionaire, her name synonymous with innovation and defiance. Yet, even as she stood atop the culinary world. Lena hadn't forgotten her vow. Lucille Etoile was still there, its Michelin stars gleaming, its reputation untarnished by the bigotry she'd faced. She knew returning wasn't enough. She needed to make them see her. Truly see her. For all she'd become. Lena's chance came sooner than she expected. A food festival in New York invited her to headline as a guest chef. Alongside the city's culinary elite, including Lucille Etoile's executive chef, Pierre Dubois. The festival was a glittering affair, held in a sprawling venue overlooking the Hudson River, with thousands of attendees and media from around the world. Lena arrived in a custom gown that shimmered like liquid gold. Jamie at her side in a tailored suit that matched their effortless charisma. The crowd parted as they walked, whispers following them like a breeze. Lena's keynote dish, a deconstructed jollof rice with smoked lobster and edible gold, was a masterpiece, earning gasps and applause. Pierre, a stern man with a reputation for perfection, watched from the sidelines, his expression unreadable. After her presentation, Pierre approached, extending a hand. "Impressive work, Ms. Carter," he said, his French accent crisp. "Your flavors are bold." Lena smiled, her eyes sharp. "Thank you, Chef Dubois. I learned to be bold when places like yours told me I didn't belong." Pierre's face stiffened, but he didn't respond. Lena didn't care. She'd said her piece, and the world was watching. That night, as Lena and Jamie danced under the festival's twinkling lights, a young queer couple approached, their eyes wide with awe. "You're our hero," the girl said, her voice trembling. "We saw your story online. You made us believe we could do anything." Lena's throat tightened. This, she realized, was bigger than Lucille. This was her legacy, showing the world that love and resilience could conquer even the deepest hate. The food festival marked a turning point. But for Lena, it was only the beginning of her reckoning with Lucille Etoile. The memory of that rainy night still lingered, a splinter in her heart. She wasn't chasing revenge, she was chasing justice. The kind that forced the world to confront its biases and bow to the truth of her worth. Eclipse's global expansion continued at a dizzying pace. Lena traveled relentlessly, opening restaurants in Dubai, Sydney, and Cape Town, each one a testament to her vision of inclusivity. She hired queer chefs, trans sommeliers, and BIPOC managers, building a team that mirrored the world she wanted to see. Jamie joined her on many of these trips, their art adorning each new eclipse with murals that told stories of struggle and triumph. Their love, once a quiet rebellion, was now a public celebration, featured in magazines and documentaries. But the more visible Lena became, the more she faced backlash. A conservative media outlet published a hit piece, accusing her of weaponizing diversity to undermine traditional fine dining. The article went viral, sparking a wave of online harassment. Lena tried to shrug it off, but late at night, when the world was quiet, she'd scroll through the comments, each one a reminder of how far she still had to go. Jamie noticed the toll it was taking. One evening in their Paris apartment, as Lena stared blankly at her phone, Jamie gently took it from her hands. "You're carrying the world, Lena," they said, their voice soft but firm. "You don't have to fight every battle alone." Lena leaned into them, her voice barely a whisper. "I know. But I can't stop. Not when kids like us are still being told they're not enough. Jamie kissed her forehead. Then let's keep fighting. But let's do it together. Inspired by Jamie's words, Lena launched the Eclipse Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to mentoring queer and BIPOC youth in the culinary arts. She poured millions into scholarships, training programs, and community kitchens, creating spaces where young dreamers could learn without fear of rejection. The foundation's first event, a cooking competition for teens, drew hundreds of applicants, their stories echoing Lena's own kids who'd been told their flavors, their identities, didn't belong. The foundation's success caught the attention of Lucille Etoile's parent company, a global hospitality conglomerate called Aurora Group. In a surprising move, they reached out to Lena, inviting her to consult on a new diversity initiative. The email was polite, professional, but Lena saw through Eda PR move to clean up their image after years of whispered complaints about their exclusivity. She agreed to meet, but not out of kindness. She wanted them to face her, to see the empire she'd built despite their rejection. The meeting was held at Aurora's sleek Manhattan headquarters, a glass tower that screamed wealth. Lena arrived with Marcus and Jamie, her presence commanding as she walked past executives who avoided her gaze. The CEO, a silver-haired man named Richard Langston, greeted her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Ms. Carter, your work with Eclipse is remarkable. We'd love your expertise to help us make Lucille more inclusive. Lena leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. Inclusive? You mean like the night your staff turned me away for being black and queer? The room fell silent. Richard's smile faltered, but he recovered quickly. That was an unfortunate misunderstanding. We've made changes since then. Have you? Lena asked, her voice sharp. Because I hear stories from my community, queer couples denied service, people of color ignored. Your stars don't shine for everyone. Mr. Langston. The meeting ended with promises of follow-ups, but Lena left with a fire in her chest. She didn't trust Aurora to change on their own. They needed to be pushed. That night, she and Jamie devised a plan. Lena would return to Lucille Etoile, not as a guest, but as a force they couldn't ignore. Lena's opportunity came when Aurora Group announced a high-profile gala at Lucille Etoile, celebrating their 50th anniversary. The guest list included culinary giants, celebrities, and influencers, all gathered to toast the restaurant's legacy. Lena secured an invitation through Vivian, who had connections with Aurora's board. The night of the gala, Lena and Jamie arrived in a chauffeured car. Lena in a crimson gown that flowed like fire, Jamie in a sleek black tuxedo with a rainbow cufflink that caught the light. The restaurant's entrance was a spectacle of gold and crystal, but Lena felt only resolve as she stepped inside. The same hostess from years ago stood at the podium, her face paling as she recognized Lena. Ms. Carter, she stammered. Welcome to Lucille Etoile. Lena smiled, her voice honeyed but sharp. Thank you. It's been a while. Inside, the gala was in full swing, with champagne flutes clinking and laughter filling the air. Lena and Jamie moved through the crowd, their presence drawing whispers and stares. When Richard Langston spotted them, he approached, his expression a mix of surprise and unease. Ms. Carter, what a pleasure. he said, extending a hand. I didn't expect to see you here. Lena took his hand, her grip firm. I'm here to celebrate, Mr. Langston, and to remind you that the future of dining doesn't belong to places that exclude. Before he could respond, Lena was called to the stage. As a last-minute addition, she'd been asked to present an award for culinary innovation. She stepped into the spotlight, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd. Years ago, I stood outside this very restaurant, turned away for who I am and who I love. She began, her words cutting through the room's chatter. But I didn't let that stop me. I built Eclipse to prove that love, identity, and talent can't be denied. This award isn't just for innovation, it's for those who dare to dream beyond the doors that close in their faces. The room erupted in applause. But Lena's eyes were on the Lucille staff, their faces a mix of shame and awe. She'd done what she promised Edged returned, and they were listening. The gala at Lucille Etoile was a triumph. But for Lena, it was only a stepping stone. Her speech had gone viral, shared across social media with hashtags like Eclipse Rising and Love Wins. The world was watching, and Aurora Group was scrambling. Within days, they issued a public apology for past oversights and announced a partnership with the Eclipse Foundation to fund culinary scholarships for marginalized youth. Lena knew it was a calculated move, but she accepted on her terms. She'd use their resources to amplify her mission, but she'd never let them forget the truth. Back at Eclipse's flagship in New York, Lena threw herself into her work with renewed vigor. The restaurant was more than a business, no, it was a symbol of possibility. Every night, she saw couples like her and Jamie, families of every color, and young dreamers who found hope in her story. But the pressure was immense. Running a global empire meant constant travel, endless meetings, and the weight of being a public figure. Lena loved it, but she missed the quiet moments cooking with Jamie, laughing over late-night sketches, dreaming without deadlines. One evening, as they sat on their rooftop overlooking Brooklyn, Jamie took Lena's hand. "You're doing so much," they said, their eyes soft. "But are you happy?" Lena hesitated. She was proud, fulfilled, but happy. The word felt distant, buried under layers of ambition and responsibility. "I'm getting there," she said finally. "But I need you with me." Jamie smiled, pulling her close. "Always. But let's make time for us." "Okay. The world can wait a little." Their words grounded her, and Lena made a promisito carve out space for their love amidst the chaos. They started small, date nights at hole-in-the-wall diners, weekends painting murals together, moments where they were just Lena and Jamie, not the billionaire chef and the artist activist. Meanwhile, Lucille Etoile's reputation was faltering. The gala had exposed cracks in their polished facade, and former employees began speaking out about a toxic culture of discrimination. Lena watched from a distance, her heart torn between satisfaction and sorrow. She didn't want Lucille to fail, she wanted it to change. But change, she knew, often came at a cost. When Aurora Group approached her again, this time with an offer to buy a stake in Eclipse, Lena saw her chance. She invited Richard Langston and his board to her Manhattan Eclipse for a private dinner. The evening was meticulously planned, each dish a story of resilience. Each course paired with a speech from a young chef trained by the Eclipse Foundation. Jamie's murals glowed under the soft lighting, and the room buzzed with energy. As the final course was served, a dessert of hibiscus sorbet and edible flowers, Lena stood, her voice commanding. "You want a piece of Eclipse," she said, addressing the board. But Eclipse isn't just a brand. It's a promisito every person who's been told they don't belong. If you want to partner with me, you commit to that promise. That means changing Lucille, top to bottom. Richard shifted uncomfortably, but the board members nodded, some with genuine respect. Lena's terms were steep, a complete overhaul of Lucille's hiring practices, a public commitment to inclusivity, and a significant donation to her foundation. To her surprise, they agreed, signing a deal that gave Lena a seat on Aurora's advisory board. The partnership was a victory, but it came with strings. Lena now had a voice in Lucille's future, but she also had to navigate a corporate world that didn't always align with her values. Meetings with Aurora's executives were tense, their polished jargon clashing with her blunt honesty. Yet Lena held her ground, pushing for reforms while protecting Eclipse's soul. One night, as Lena and Jamie walked through Central Park, the city's lights twinkling around them, Lena felt a shift. For the first time in years, she wasn't running toward a goal or fighting a battle. She was here, in this moment, with the person she loved most. "I think I'm happy," she said, her voice soft. Jamie grinned, squeezing her hand. "Good. Because you deserve it." The next day, Lena received a call from Pierre Dubois, Lucille's executive chef. He wanted to meet. Alone. Curious but wary, Lena agreed, choosing a neutral Spoda quiet cafe in Soho. Pierre arrived looking older, his stern demeanor softened by something like regret. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice low. "I didn't know what happened that night you were turned away. But I should have. I let the culture at Lucille fester. And I'm sorry." Lena studied him, searching for sincerity. "Words are easy. Chef, what are you doing about it?" Pierre nodded, as if expecting her challenge. "I'm stepping down. I recommended you as my replacement. The board agrees you're the only one who can redefine what Lucille means." Lena's breath caught. Running Lucille Etoile was a dream she'd buried long ago, replaced by her love for Eclipse. But the idea of transforming the restaurant that had rejected her, of making it a beacon like Eclipse, was intoxicating. She didn't give Pierre an answer that day. Instead, she went home to Jamie, who listened as she poured out her thoughts. "It's a chance to change everything," she said. "But it's also a risk. What if I lose myself in their world?" Jamie took her hand, their eyes steady. "You won't. Because you're Lena Carter. You don't just play the game, you rewrite the rules." Lena stood at a crossroads, the offer to lead Lucille Etoile weighing heavy on her mind. It wasn't just a job, it was a chance to dismantle the very system that had rejected her, to turn a symbol of exclusion into one of belonging. But it meant stepping into a world of corporate politics, a far cry from the grassroots fire of Eclipse. She spent sleepless nights wrestling with the decision, Jamie's steady presence her only anchor. "I could change Lucille," Lena said one morning over coffee, her voice tinged with both excitement and fear. "But what if it changes me?" Jamie set their mug down, their gaze unwavering. "You've never let anyone dim your light. Lena. Not Lucille. Not the trolls. Not the world. If you take this, you'll make it yours. Buoyed by their words, Lena accepted the role, but with conditions. She'd remain CEO of Eclipse, splitting her time between her empire and Lucille. She demanded full creative control and a commitment to diversify the staff and menu. Aurora Group agreed, eager to leverage her name to salvage their tarnished brand. Lena's first day at Lucille Etoile was surreal. She walked through the same gilded doors that had once shut her out, now as the executive chef and creative director. The staff greeted her with a mix of curiosity and unease, aware of her story and the changes she represented. The hostess from that fateful night was gone, replaced by a young queer woman who beamed as she welcomed Lena. Her first move was bold, a complete menu overhaul. She replaced Lucille's staid French classics with dishes that celebrated global flavors: Senegalese yassa, Jamaican jerk, Korean banchan, while keeping the precision that earned its Michelin stars. She hired chefs from marginalized communities, training them to blend their heritage with fine dining techniques. The dining room, once a sea of white faces, began to reflect New York's diversity, with queer couples and families of color filling the tables. The changes sparked controversy. Some critics called it a betrayal of tradition, while others praised Lena's revolutionary vision. Social media exploded, with Lucille Reborn trending alongside heated debates. Lena ignored the noise, focusing on the guests who left with smiles, their stories echoing her own. But the internal battles were fiercer. Some veteran staff resisted her changes, whispering about standards and legacy. Lena faced them head-on, holding meetings where she shared her vision, a restaurant where everyone belonged, where excellence wasn't defined by conformity. Slowly, some came around, inspired by her passion. Others left, unable to adapt. One evening, as Lena plated a dish for a VIP table, she overheard a conversation that stopped her cold. Two board members, dining incognito, were discussing Lucille's falling profits. "She's turning this place into a circus," one muttered. "We gave her too much power." Lena's heart sank, but she refused to falter. She approached their table, her smile sharp. "Gentlemen, I hope you're enjoying the meal. It's a taste of the future, one where everyone has a seat." The men stammered, caught off guard. But Lena didn't linger. She returned to the kitchen. Her resolve hardened. If Aurora doubted her, she'd prove them wrong, not with words, but with results. Over the next year, Lucille Etoile transformed. Reservations skyrocketed, driven by Lena's bold menu and the buzz around her story. The restaurant earned its third Michelin star, a feat Pierre had never achieved. Critics who'd once scoffed now called it a triumph of inclusivity and innovation. Lena's dual role as Eclipse's CEO and Lucille's chef made her a global icon. Her face on magazine covers, her TED Talk viewed millions of times. But success came at a cost. The relentless pace strained her relationship with Jamie. Late nights at Lucille meant fewer moments together. And Jamie's art, once a shared passion, took a backseat to Lena's empire. One night, after a rare argument, Jamie sat her down. "I'm proud of you," they said, their voice thick with emotion. "But I miss us. I miss the Lena who cooked for me in our tiny kitchen, who laughed until dawn." Lena's eyes welled up. She'd been so focused on changing the world. She'd neglected the person who made her world whole. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Let's fix this." They made a pact, 1 weekend a month. No work. Just them. They'd cook, paint, or simply walk the city, rediscovering the spark that had carried them through. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to keep their love alive. As Lucille's success grew, Lena turned her attention to the Eclipse Foundation. The nonprofit was thriving, with programs in 10 cities and plans to expand globally. She mentored young chefs, sharing the lessons she'd learned: resilience, authenticity, and the power of community. One mentee, a trans teenager named Aisha, reminded Lena of herself: fierce, talented, and hungry for a chance. At a foundation gala, Aisha presented a dish inspired by her Somali heritage, earning a standing ovation. Lena watched, tears in her eyes, as Aisha beamed. "This is why I do it," Lena told Jamie later. For her. For all of them. But even as she celebrated, Lena knew her work wasn't done. The culinary world was changing, but prejudice still lingered in boardrooms, in kitchens, in the hearts of those who clung to old ways. She'd conquered Lucille, but the fight for a truly inclusive industry was far from over. Lena's transformation of Lucille Itoile was a beacon, but it also made her a target. As her influence grew, so did the backlash from those who saw her as a threat to their privilege. Anonymous threats, Aravid mails, letters, even graffiti on an Eclipse location. Most were harmless. But one night, a brick shattered the window of her New York flagship. A note attached: "Go back where you came from." Lena stood amidst the broken glass, her hands trembling. Jamie was there in minutes, pulling her into a fierce hug. "They're scared," they said, echoing words from years ago. "You're too big for them to ignore." The police called it a hate crime, but no arrests were made. Lena refused to let fear win. She doubled down, turning the incident into a rallying cry. The Eclipse Foundation launched a campaign called Break the Glass, raising funds to repair the damage and support queer and BIPOC businesses. The community responded with overwhelming support, donations pouring in alongside messages of love. But the incident shook Lena more than she admitted. She began to question whether her fight was worth the cost, not just to her, but to those she loved. Jamie noticed the change. The way Lena's laughter grew quieter, her eyes distant. One night, as they lay in bed, Jamie spoke softly. "You don't have to carry this alone, Lena. We're a team." Lena turned to them, her voice breaking. "What if I'm putting you in danger? What if this fight hurts us more than it helps?" Jamie cupped her face. "You're not just fighting for us. You're fighting for every kid who's been told they're less than. That's worth it. We're worth it." Their words rekindled Lena's fire. She channeled her fear into action, strengthening security at Eclipse and Lucille while pushing the Eclipse Foundation to new heights. She partnered with advocacy groups, hosting events that brought together queer activists, chefs, and community leaders. The movement grew, its impact rippling far beyond food. Meanwhile, Lucille Itoile was thriving under Lena's leadership. The restaurant's new menu drew international acclaim, with diners flying in from Paris and Tokyo to experience her vision. But not everyone was pleased. A faction of Aurora Group's board, led by a hardline executive named Charles Vaughn, began to push back. Charles saw Lena's changes as a financial risk, arguing that her radical approach alienated their traditional clientele. At a tense board meeting, Charles presented a proposal to scale back Lena's reforms, citing profit margins. "We're a business, not a charity," he said, his voice cold. "Your agenda is costing us." Lena stood, her presence commanding the room. "My agenda is why Lucille has 3 stars again. It's why we're booked out for months. You can't put a price on belonging, but it's paying off." The room was split, but Lena's allies, bolstered by her results, outvoted Charles. Still, she knew he wouldn't stop. He was a reminder that power didn't yield easily, even when faced with undeniable success. To solidify her position, Lena proposed a bold move, a global summit hosted by Lucille and Eclipse, bringing together chefs, activists, and policymakers to redefine fine dining. The summit, dubbed Table for All, would be a platform to showcase inclusive culinary arts and challenge industry norms. Aurora's board approved, seeing it as a PR win. But for Lena, it was a chance to cement her legacy. Planning the summit was grueling. Lena and Jamie worked around the clock, coordinating with chefs from across the globe, many of whom had faced their own battles with discrimination. The event was set to take place at Lucille Etoile, a symbolic choice that wasn't lost on Lena. She wanted the world to see the restaurant's transformation, to know that change was possible. As the summit approached, Lena faced a personal challenge. Her mother, now in her 60s, fell ill, her years as a line cook catching up with her. Lena flew back to Harlem, sitting by her mother's bedside in the same apartment where she'd learned to cook. "I'm so proud of you," her mother whispered, her voice weak. "You're doing what I never could." Lena held her hand, tears falling. "I'm doing it because of you, Mama. You showed me how." Her mother's illness grounded Lena, reminding her why she'd started this journey. She returned to the summit with renewed purpose, determined to make it a turning point for the industry. The Table for All Summit was a triumph. Chefs from marginalized communities shared their stories, their dishes a vibrant tapestry of cultures. Activists spoke of systemic change, and policymakers pledged support for inclusive initiatives. Lena closed the event with a speech that brought the room to its feet. "This isn't just about food," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "It's about who gets a seat at the table. We're here to say, everyone does." The summit garnered global attention, with media outlets calling it a revolution in dining. Lena's name became synonymous with change, her story inspiring a new generation of chefs. But as she stood in the spotlight, she felt Jamie's hand in hers, a reminder that her greatest strength was the love they shared. The Table for All Summit cemented Lena's place as a global icon, but it also intensified the pressure on her. She was no longer just a chef or a businesswoman, she was a symbol, a voice for those who'd been silenced. Every move she made was scrutinized, every word dissected. Yet, she thrived in the spotlight, using her platform to amplify others. The Eclipse Foundation grew, launching culinary schools in underserved communities, while Lucille Etoile became a model for inclusivity, its staff and menu a testament to Lena's vision. But Charles Vaughn, the Aurora Group executive, hadn't given up. He saw Lena's success as a personal affront, a challenge to his control. Behind closed doors, he rallied a group of investors, plotting to undermine her influence. Their plan, a hostile takeover of Eclipse, leveraging Lena's stretched resources to force her out. Lena learned of the plot through Marcus, who'd caught wind of unusual stock movements. "They're coming for you," he warned, his voice grim. "Charles has deep pockets and deeper grudges." Lena's first instinct was panic, but she pushed it down. She'd faced worse than Charles' bigots. Trolls. A world that told her she didn't belong. This was just another fight. She called an emergency meeting with her team, including Jamie, Marcus, and Vivian. Together, they devised a counter-strategy. Lena would buy a controlling stake in Aurora Group itself, turning the tables on Charles. It was a gamble that required every ounce of her wealth and influence. Lena liquidated assets, called in favors, and secured loans from allies who believed in her vision. Jamie was her anchor, designing a campaign to rally public support, with murals and social media posts that declared Eclipse forever. The queer and BIPOC communities rallied behind her, their voices drowning out the skeptics. The battle for Aurora played out in boardrooms and headlines. Charles painted Lena as an opportunist, but her authenticity shone through. At a shareholder meeting, she stood before a packed room, her voice steady. "I didn't build Eclipse for profit," she said. "I built it for us, for every person who's been told they're not enough. If you back me, you're backing a future where everyone belongs." The shareholders voted in her favor, swayed by her passion and the undeniable success of Eclipse and Lucille. Lena secured the controlling stake, ousting Charles and reshaping Aurora's board to reflect her values. The victory was sweet, but it left her exhausted, her body and mind pushed to their limits. Jamie noticed the toll. One evening, as they sat in their Paris Eclipse, Lena's hands shook as she poured wine. "You need a break," Jamie said, their voice gentle but firm. "You've changed the world. Now let the world carry itself for a while." Lena resisted at first, but Jamie's insistence won out. They planned a month-long retreat to a small cabin in upstate New York, a place where they could be just Lena and Jamie, not the billionaire chef and the artist activist. They cooked simple meals, painted, and walked through the woods, their love a quiet refuge from the storm. During the retreat, Lena reflected on her journey. She'd started with a dream in a Harlem kitchen, faced rejection at Lucille Etoile, and built an empire that changed the world. But her greatest achievement wasn't the money or the stars, it was the lives she'd touched, the doors she'd opened for others. One day, as they sat by a lake, Jamie handed Lena a sketchbook. Inside was a drawing of her, standing in the Lucille kitchen, surrounded by young chefs of every color and identity. "This is your legacy," Jamie said. "Not just the restaurants, but the people you've inspired." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "I couldn't have done it without you." Jamie smiled, pulling her close. "We did it together." When they returned to New York, Lena was recharged, ready to face the next chapter. She expanded the Eclipse Foundation's reach, launching a global mentorship program that paired young chefs with industry leaders. She also began writing a memoir, a raw, honest account of her journey, hoping to inspire others to fight for their place. Lucille Etoile continued to thrive, its third star a symbol of Lena's triumph. But she never forgot the night she was turned away. She kept a photo of that rainy evening on her desk, a reminder of why she fought. When a young chef asked her about it, she smiled and said, "That's where it all began." Sometimes, the doors that close in your face lead you to build your own. Lena's memoir, A Seat at the Table, became a bestseller. Its pages a love letter to resilience, identity, and the power of community. She toured the world, speaking to sold-out crowds, her story resonating with anyone who'd ever felt excluded. But her proudest moments were quieter, mentoring young chefs, watching them shine in Eclipse's kitchens, their dreams no longer bound by prejudice. Lucille Etoile was now a beacon of inclusivity, its staff a vibrant mix of identities, its menu a celebration of global flavors. Lena had rewritten its legacy, but she never grew complacent. She knew change was fragile, that the fight for equality required constant vigilance. She trained her team to uphold her values, ensuring Lucille would remain a place for all, even after she stepped back. Her relationship with Jamie deepened, their love a steady flame amidst the chaos. They bought a brownstone in Harlem, a nod to Lena's roots, and filled it with art, music, and laughter. On weekends, they hosted dinners for friends and mates. The table a microcosm of the world they'd built, diverse, joyful, unapologetic. One spring evening, Lena received an invitation to Lucille Etoile's annual gala, this time as the guest of honor. It was a far cry from the night she'd been turned away, but the memory still lingered. She and Jamie arrived hand in hand, Lena in a sapphire gown, Jamie in a velvet blazer, their presence commanding the room. The new hostess, a young black woman who'd come through the Eclipse Foundation, greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome, Ms. Carter," she said, her voice full of pride. "It's an honor." Inside, the gala was a celebration of Lucille's rebirth. Lena took the stage, her heart full as she looked out at the crowd: chefs, activists, diners of every background. "This restaurant once told me I didn't belong," she said, her voice steady. "But tonight, we're here to say that everyone does. This is what happens when we fight for our place, when we love fiercely and build boldly." The applause was deafening, but Lena's eyes found Jamie's, their smile her true reward. After the speech, Richard Langston approached, his demeanor softer than before. "You've changed us, Lena," he said. "I was wrong about you. Thank you." Lena nodded, her smile gracious but firm. "It's not about me, Mr. Langston. It's about them." She gestured to the young chefs in the room, their faces alight with possibility. As the years passed, Lena's empire grew, but she never lost sight of her roots. She opened a community kitchen in Harlem, named after her mother, who'd passed away but lived on in every dish Lena created. The Eclipse Foundation expanded to 30 countries, training thousands of chefs and inspiring a generation to redefine fine dining. Lena and Jamie married in a small ceremony surrounded by loved ones, their vows a promise to keep fighting, keep loving, keep building. They adopted a daughter, a fierce little girl they named Hope, who grew up in a world shaped by her parents' courage. On the 10th anniversary of Eclipse's opening, Lena returned to Lucille Etoile, not as a chef or a billionaire, but as a guest. She and Jamie sat at a table by the window, the city sparkling beyond. The menu featured a dish inspired by Hera jollof rice risotto with edible gold, a nod to her journey. As they ate, a young couple approached, their hands intertwined. "You're Lena Carter," the man said, his voice trembling. "Your story gave us the courage to be ourselves." "Thank you." Lena smiled, her heart full. "Thank you," she said. "You're why I kept going." As they left Lucille that night, Lena looked up at the stars, the same ones that had watched her vow to return. She'd done more than thatched, built a world where love and resilience triumphed, where no one was turned away. And with Jamie by her side, she knew the fight was worth it.